everything golden.
Finding your greatest love, your highest adventures, the joy that brings you into the paradise life that you've always wanted to be living. It all starts with you and going deep inside.
Everything golden.
Featuring Francesca Rose and David Starr, where miracles come true every episode. Here are your hosts.
Get ready, get ready, get ready.
Welcome everybody to Everything Golden, and we have an amazing guest here today. We are excited to bring on the most amazing, fabulous Mark Patterson. Thank you for joining us on Everything Golden.
Thank you so much for having me. It's quite an honor. I'm looking forward to our dialogue and our conversation. So
And
ready.
you know Francesca because you've been working together at a Starseed group. So now,
Yeah.
we're definitely going to get into your story, but there are Starseed group meetups happening around the planet. What are some of the things that go on and are discussed at your Starseeds groups?
Well, we talk about experiences, like experiences with ETs, UFOs. We talk about timelines. We talk about human potential, and of course, awakening consciousness and awakening each other and awakening ourselves, because that's, we're kind of on the threshold, so to speak, of the cusp of this great awakening. And it's here, it's at hand. And so it's really important that people embrace these things, because unfortunately, as a kid, when I had these experiences, I was always told that I was crazy. And my goal for the class has always been, I want these people to share their stories without being feared of being condemned or judged or persecuted. And I want their experiences to be validated, because they are, because many of us have had encounters with ETs, angels, ever since, we were kids, but we were often told that we were crazy or we're making it up or no one believes you. And so it's really important that people are in a platform, a safe platform, where they can share their experiences of all these things that are happening at a multidimensional realities, multidimensional universe that, of course, we are in.
It's definitely a time where these kinds of stories are popping up, and you can expect more. There's going to be more of these. So these groups and what you're doing, I applaud you for that effort, because sometimes it can be confusing, especially if experiences aren't positive. And it's good to talk about these things.
I was very psychic as a kid. I always saw energy around people. I saw lights around people. I had numerous encounters with UFOs, with ETs, with unseen beings, angels, and unfortunately, a lot of them, they were not pleasant. They were intrusive, and of course, I'd go to tell people about it, and all I ever heard was, "Don't talk about that. You don't know what you're talking about. That didn't happen. You're crazy." And for God knows what reason, I chose because we choose everything. I chose a Holy Roller Southern Baptist uh, uh, Bible thumper for a father, and he would always tell me that I was possessed by the devil. So you unfortunately you learn not to trust yourself. You learn to not accept yourself. You start to believe other people more than you believe yourself. And so that you learn that you start thinking that maybe you are fucking crazy. Maybe there's something wrong with you. And so I didn't want to hear the voices anymore. I didn't want to see the lights anymore. And I found that by the time I was 13, 14 years old, I was drinking alcohol. And I wasn't doing Bartles and James wine coolers. I wasn't drinking Miller Lite or Bud Light. I was doing Everclear. I was doing Jim and Jack, Johnny. And because I found that that's what shut it down. If I was numb, comatose, I didn't have to feel anymore. And so, and I've found, as I share my story with people, and I've done countless podcast interviews like this over the last couple of years, there are many people like me that had that same path. where they didn't want to feel anymore. They didn't want to be told they're crazy anymore. So they just numbed it out either through drugs or alcohol.
Let's go into this a little bit because this seems will like that who may be tuning in may have some experiences. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of these experiences.
Oftentimes I would see the UFOs, and I grew up on Friendship Street in Iowa City, and you would see the UFOs, and you'd see the balls of light, and I would run into the place to where I grew up at, and I'd get my mom, come out, they're here, and she would come out, and she couldn't see them because and they talk about this like the Native Americans when the settlers first came to America. The Native Americans didn't see them because there was no reference point of that for their reality, and also these UFOs are operating in a different dimensional reality, um, that people just don't have no reference point to them, so they don't see them. So I'm seeing these; they're very real to me, and here's my mom. I have no idea what you're talking. What the hell are you talking about, Mark? Stop having me come out here when there's nothing to see. So I mean, it's really confusing. And then, as over the years, you have these experiences over and over again. And then you hear about other people's stories. Of course, much later in life, uh, and I'll get to that about how things kind of came more valid for me. Uh, you learn that what you experience is real, and it's along with like being abducted. I was abducted many times, with implants because the Greys, the Zeta Reticuli, choose people that they find to be the greatest threat to breaking the matrix here. And so what people need to understand about abductions is, like, let's say that we were observing you, David, overnight, and because we have a sleep environment, because you tell me you've been abducted, and we observe you overnight, and nothing happens to you, and you wake up and go, oh God, those devils got me again. They did something to me again, and you're like, what are you talking about? We didn't see anything happen. That's because all abductions, all those experimentations happen interdimensionally on a different dimensional reality that it's not seen by the visible eye, and it's very intrusive, and it's very frightening. I mean, my mom recently used to finally admitted that she would hear me scream in the middle of the night, and it's probably wasn't because of night terrors. It was because of the Greys, you know, doing things to me, and so that came out. But these things are real. But the reason why we don't see them is because these abductions happen on an interdimensional plane. With the alcohol, um, and what happened to me in my near-death experience is that I was at a high school party and I was trying to impress my classmates. So I grabbed a fifth of vodka. I chugged it down. I did a fifth of vodka, 4 beers, 2 glasses of wine, and about 3 wine coolers in about 90 minutes. And needless to say, my body went into cardiac arrest from acute alcohol poisoning. My skin was black, green, and purple, and I was completely dead, unconscious on the bathroom floor at the Canterbury Inn and Suites in Coralville, Iowa. I was 16 years old, and as I was, leaving my body, going towards the light, I was greeted by my grandfather Russell, who had passed away when I was about 2 or 3 years old, and I kind of had fleeting memories of him. He informed me that I was going home, that I was, that my life, my journey was over. And I thought, oh, that was great. You really did it. You really messed that one up. And then I went into the light. We went into the light and we were greeted by 7 angels. They were 14 feet tall each. They were female in appearance. And I always talk about, like, the movie Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, the City of the Clouds, and this building. Uh, the It was just so amazing, incredible experience. There's so much love for us. You cannot fathom the love, that how much you are loved, no matter what you do or don't do. You are loved unconditionally, and that love, I cannot describe the love that I experienced. the peace that I experienced, and they showed me my life like in a hologram because this is a holographic universe. And anytime I was angry, resentful, or blamed other people, they asked me, how does that relate to love? And everything in our life becomes an opportunity to express love. See, the word forgiveness means for giving your love away. So no matter what happens to you, you're forgiving, you are for giving your love away. If you're always out getting the material things, the Rolex watch, the Jaguar, the houses, and material things are important, don't get me wrong. But if you're always forgetting things, out forgetting things, you are forgetting who you really are. And so then, everything is, the time aspect is very different. Like what happens in a few minutes on that side could be a few hours on this side. So then they introduced me to a being that was about 30 feet tall, who had great love for me, tremendous love for me. They went into great dialogue about sacred geometry, sound, healing through sound, and the Melchizedek priesthood. And so then this 30-foot being formed an icosahedron, which is a geometric solid, and went into my heart. And as I watched Mark, the soul that was in my body from the time I was conceived to 16, went on with Russell, and then this 30-foot being came into my body and brought me back to life. And so for about 4 or 5 days, I really didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was at. There was just this voice, David and Francesca, that kept telling me, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay." But everyone looked about this tall to me. Everyone was tiny to me. And then about the fourth or fifth day, all of a sudden, I remembered everything. I mean, I remembered that I was Mark. I was a sophomore at West High in Iowa City, Iowa, and that this is what I did, and this is who I was, and all the memories came back to me. And people have always asked me, well, was there a difference? So in a sense, I'm a walk-in. And in another sense, there's a book called Barbara Ann Brennan wrote the book Hands of Light. And on page 262, it says, future lifetimes can be placed in the auric field at the beginning of birth and can be taken on if an individual so chooses. So in a sense, I reincarnated into the same body with an aspect of myself from the future. So I came back through time and space dimensional reality to be here now. Another aspect, it was a completely different, it was like a different soul. So I'm like a walk-in. And so people ask me, well, what was different? Well, the walk-in made me more psychic and more intuitive. And so instead of doing alcohol, I think from the time I was 16 to 18, I was smoking marijuana, hash, Thai stick, sensibilia, um, you know, because it was the overwhelm came from an event. A few months after that, I had my near-death experience. I was in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, Door County, Wisconsin, one of those beautiful places in America. And I was with my childhood friend Peter and his family. And one morning I went to Peter's mom and I said, "Look, you need to call your daughter, Peter's sister, and tell her not to come up." And she was really baffled by what I was trying to tell her. Well, David, later that night, again, I went to her and I just said, "Look, you have to call your daughter right now and tell her not to come up." And they had been fighting. They were like a perfect family. They were like, the Beavers, Leave It to Beaver, the show, perfect family, very affluent, very, very well standing in the community. And they would never fight, never argue, but they were having really bad arguments. And she goes, "I didn't realize that we're arguing stuff, but it's going to be okay." Well, David and Francesca, the next morning, I looked at her again and just said, "Look, you have to call your daughter now and tell her not to come up." They got really distraught with me. They were very upset with me. They put me on the Greyhound bus the next morning and sent me back to Iowa. Their daughter was killed in a car accident on the way up. So, so that's why I turned to marijuana and stuff, because it was like, I did what you told me to do and she's dead now. So I didn't want to deal with any of that. So around the ages of 18, My other childhood friend, Toby, his mom, Patty Lou, introduced me to Jerry Bowman and Joe Albiani. Jerry Bowman was a Vietnam vet. He was a trance channel, a medium, and he channeled John the Apostle from the Bible. Now, many people, and Joe Albiani was his assistant. Joe Albiani was an attorney out of Boston, Massachusetts. They did the Out of the Ordinary show at KIEV in Los Angeles, California. And most people have never heard of Jerry or Joe, but they've heard of Shirley MacLaine. And Shirley MacLaine, the famous actress, her channel at the time was Kevin Ryerson. Kevin Ryerson also channeled John. And I'd watch I'd watch Jerry Bowman go into a trance, and John would speak through him. Well, shortly after that, John would start speaking to me like you and I are talking now. And John would say things like, "We never use the truth to be right. We never use the truth to score points for our ego. We never use the truth to make others wrong. We never use the truth to belittle others. A master is not a master because he himself says so. A master is called master because those who witness him say he's master. The kingdom of God is within you. Why do you seek anything else?" And he would say, do you really want to experience your life as anything less than the one we call Jesus? And of course, when you're 18, 19 years old, there's too many blondes, there's too many brunettes, there's, a lot of distractions. And, you realize 30 some years later that you probably should have listened a little bit more intently to what John had to say to you. Of course, in the last couple of years, John has returned to me, has been speaking to me again. And so that's when I really first started receiving the messages, from the other side, from John Lazarus, even though I had encounters from beings when I was a kid. And also as a child, I forgot to bring this up, but this is really important. As a child, I used to dream over and over again that I was loved, that I belonged, that I mattered. I dream about Winnie the Pooh, Tigger. I dream about Disneyland, Disney World, all the things I ever wanted. I'd find myself in my dreams inside my bedroom closet. At any time that I wanted to feel like I was loved, like I was wanted, I'd find myself inside my bedroom closet. Of course, that's a metaphor for that everything we already want is already within our hearts. The bedroom closet was a metaphor for what's already inside of us. And so that's when I started receiving messages and guides. And we can go from there. Then I'll go into the story about Drunvalo Melchizedek here in a little bit.
I was actually just about to ask you that because the Melchizedek, blue flames of ascension, and the order um, of the Melchizedek, in my experience with it, it is literally the order of the ascended beings who have ascended Earth since the beginning. But what is your experience with it?
So the Melchizedek priesthood, the Bible says Jesus is like Melchizedek, and thou shalt for all be a priest in that order. So the Melchizedek priesthood, or called the Great White Brotherhood, uh, they live beyond time and space. They're literally the Time Lords. They kind of watch over the planet. They are a great orchestrator of the events to balance out the quote dark forces. And in January of 1997, the Great White Brotherhood and the quote Dark Brotherhood uh, made peace with each other and merged into one. And I'm very aware of that experience on a personal level. But the Melchizedek priesthood, Melchizedek is depicted in Wales as a real person. The last time he was here, he probably lived about 400 years old. And but there was a lot of things that had to be moved around through time and space to come back here through that time and space continuum. But they're basically the Time Lords, the gatekeepers.
Yeah,
If that makes
I seen him Melchizedek coming into Earth in the beginning with the luminaries, which are basically like the light beings, right? And these
that
light
is correct.
beings, they are still here and they are the watchers. And where I've seen them populate up places like Mount Shasta, and this like indigenous sacred land in Winnipeg, actually just out not too far away, is like the holiest land in Manitoba. And and then I seen them there. And what's actually fascinating about them is they are coming from a higher dimension for sure, but it's like they exist in these places, and the indigenous would call them the Great Spirit or the Great Light or whatever. Um, and but I actually can tune in and see it all. And so when I go to these places, it is like they are one, but yet they come through this light, and they are literally light beings. And but of course, if they wanted to incarnate or become physical beings at will, of course they could, if because they have that within their mastery levels. And these illuminaries were, in my opinions, the ones who were working with like the Venetians and the Lumerians, and assisting, and where they were getting a lot of their information, and connecting to. So uh, I do feel like it's been happening, like these ascensions, timelines beyond this timeline we're in now, but like from the beginning, even in Lumeria and even in Atlantis, the time of Christ, and all these thousands of souls that have ascended so far on Earth, are all connected to this like ancient knowledge. And and then here we are coming in blinded by a veil, and into our gifts, and having to rediscover it all again and share it with people. I think there's a lot more to this Melchizedek order, than most are aware of, and what is written in the Bible, I don't feel it does it justice of what like the origins of it
Yeah,
actually is.
they are the record keepers, and they're very so like on Earth, the whales are the record keepers of the planet. The whales and orcas,
Yeah.
dolphins, especially the whales, they hold all the memories of the Earth. That's very true. Yeah. So, and I think it was 1992. I um, I was also introduced to Dick Sutphin. Dick Sutphin wrote the book "You Were Born Again" when I was like 18 years old. Dick Sutphin wrote the book "You Were Born Again to Be Together" about soulmates and reincarnations. I think it sold like 7 million copies with Simon and Schuster. And I went and trained with Dick Sutphin. He trained Brian Weiss, who really brought past life regression kind of to the forefront and to the mainstream people. And that's kind of my background in hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Is I really focus on past life regression and reincarnation and different lifetimes and things like that. And so in 1992, I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, the first time around, and I was given the book "You Were Born Again," or "You Were Bringers of the Dawn" by Barbara Marciniak, and that's about the Matrix, how the ETs, the aliens, the Greys, the Data Reticulites have influenced our government. That and again, it spoke about geometry, sound, a lot of things I was talked about in my near-death experience, and it really resonated true for me. And then also at the same time, my friend Rosemary Swanson gave me the videotapes, "The Flower of Life" with Drunvalo Melchizedek, and at the time it was the bootleg of the bootleg of the bootleg of videotapes, and he was still teaching the course back then. And I was working at 82 Queen. In fact, it's a restaurant in Charleston that's still there, and there's 12 sections there. So as you know, in restaurant work, every night you get a different section. Well, David and Francisca, this man came into our restaurant every night for 6 nights in a row, and every night, even though I was in a different section, uh, he ended up in my section, which is mathematically impossible. And the last night he was there, he's with his son Sean, who was my age, and his wife. And we have like a 2 hour wait. I'm running 6 or 7 tables. I'm in the weeds. We're extremely busy. And I'm taking his order, and all of a sudden, this angelic voice, a female, comes to me, and she goes, "We need you to talk to him about the videotapes you're watching." And I'm just like, no, no. Because what the hell am I going to say to this guy, right? And I, and they're like, no, we really want you to do this. We want you. This is really important. I go, I'm good. Thank you. And so I go to leave the table. I was physically pushed back by an unseen force, and they said, no, we really want you. You have to do this. And so I look at him and I get, what am I going to, so I go, are you a mathematics professor? And he looks at me and goes, Mark, what did you really want to ask me? And so I say, well, I'm watching these videotapes about the Sphinx, the pyramids, the Flower of Life. He goes, Drunvalo Melchizedek, you have those videotapes? I have to have those videotapes. I'm going, well, they're not mine, but I'll call Rosemarie and see if I can give them to you. So of course, back then we didn't get out of the restaurant until midnight or 1 a.m. And the next morning I called Rosemarie and said, hey, this guy's adamant that those tapes belong to him. He really wants them. And is it okay if I give them to him? And she goes, I'm done watching them. I've seen them over and over again. Do you want to keep watching them? I go, no, I think I've got it. And again, it was just information that was shared to me in my near-death experience, you know, and it validated everything that happened to me in my NDE. And so I met him the next day or the day after. I give him the videotapes, and a few months pass. I don't hear anything from him. And I go to work one morning, and again, this female angelic voice comes back to me, and she goes, "We need you to go to your manager now and tell her that you need to go home." Like, what do you? I just got here. What are you talking? They're expecting me to work today. Just go. Just tell her you have to go home. So I go up to her. Name was Melissa Miller. She went by Missy. I go, I'm really not feeling well. Is it okay if I go home? She's like, oh, we're thinking about cutting one or two people today anyway. Yeah, go ahead and go home. So the angelic voice comes back to me and says, please go directly to your place. Please do not stop anywhere on the way. Sure, great, whatever. So I go back to my place, which is a carriage home in downtown Charleston at the time. I open my door. As I open the door, the phone rings. It's Roger, who I gave the videotapes to. He's calling me from France. And he says, hey, Mark, how would you like to work with Drunvalo Melchizedek in person? He's going to be at Cope Crest, Georgia, which is real close to here. It's kind of on the Georgia-North Carolina border, part of the Smoky Mountains. Like, yeah, great. I'd love to do that. I love his information. What do I need to do? How much does it cost? And he says, thank you for the videotapes. Everything's been taken care of. And so I got to spend 10 days with Drunvalo. Of course, later in my life, when I lived in Sedona, Arizona for 15 years, I'd run into Drunvalo all the time. And so these are like our synchronicities, and these are things that are set up for us. And these are things that we have lined up for us, if we're willing to trust them. And so I got to work with Drunvalo. It was very empowering. And then at that time, there were two people that knew about my NDE. My best friend, Dean, who's still in Iowa, and Kirsten, who was dating at the time back in Charleston. I didn't tell anyone. I mean, because it was so like out of this world. It was so, and all my classmates saw my skin was black, green, and purple. They all saw that I was totally unconscious. And plus, you're 16 years old as a male, right? So no one knew about those two people. And so in 1995, I was still in Charleston, and we had started doing a Reiki circle at the North Charleston, the Unity Church on Leeds Avenue there. And that's when the tone started coming through me, just whoo, like that. And then David and Francesca, I get a phone call at 1:30 in the morning from a woman I never met, never spoke with before. I don't know how she got my number. She described my near-death experience verbatim. She talked to me about sound, sacred geometry, the Melchizedek priesthood, and that I had this gift with sound and vocal toning that I didn't really understand that was given to me in my near-death experience. And then She goes, "Oh, by the way, when you were a child, you used to dream about your bedroom closet over and over again. That's where you felt you were most loved, that you belonged, that you mattered. And anytime that you didn't feel like you were that you belonged or that you were alone, you felt discarded. You would always find yourself going into your bedroom closet in your dreams at night." And you know, so sure enough, she was correct. And then she's, "Oh, Mark, by the way, I have to tell you." And I says, "Yeah, I'm getting ready to go back to Charleston. I worked everything out with Harvey. Called Harvey Poole a couple weeks ago. Everything is lined up, and I'm going to go back to ADG Queen in a couple weeks. I just found another place to live. Everything is ready to go." She goes, "No, Mark, you're not going back to Charleston. You need to go to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and go to undergraduate and graduate school there." I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. You know, I think I'll pass. I
Okay,
really
wait a
like."
second. Wait, hold on a second here. Let's just go back for a second because how could anyone possibly know about the dream in the closet unless they were like an angel or like a heavenly sent being? That seems and like didn't you ask like who are you, lady?
I did, and according to her, I'll just say her name was Deb. Um, she said that we were part of the same soul, same soul family, and that we were psychically connected in a very profound way. And people have asked me over the years, was she a real person? Did I ever meet her? In fact, I did. I met her in 1997 at the Four Corners Monument, where Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico meet. Yeah, but yeah,
So
I mean, she was definitely
she was
a being of
a real
a
person,
person. Yes, sir.
real physical blood. So it was this
Yeah,
unbelievable psychic link.
Unbelievable Psychic Link. Yeah,
Wow, that's somebody who's like within your close to your vibration, probably of your soul family then. Like
that
we
is. Yeah, that's correct. So I tell, again, I'll just say her name was Deb. I go, "Yeah, I'm going back to Charleston." It's like, "No, just wait and see. You're going to Las Cruces." Like, whatever, you know. So the very next day, I get a phone call from Luis Vasquez. Luis Vasquez was kind of my like mentor during junior high school, into high school. And again, I haven't heard from him in years. I don't know how he got my phone number. He goes, "Hey, Mark, what are you up to? This is Luis Vasquez. Checking on you. Want to know what's going on in your life? Hey, I just want to let you know that I just took the job as the associate professor in the psychology department at New Mexico State University in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I really think that you probably should come here and go to school. I can get you in." I'm just like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" So I ended up going to Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I went to undergraduate and graduate school. Well, I completed my degree in psychology, but I lasted 1 year in graduate school. I got frustrated with the professors because it's like all you're having me do is doing your research so that you can expand your career. I want to do my own research for me. I don't want to write your papers for you. And so there was kind of a mutual agreement that I was not an ideal a graduate student. Um, so, but yeah, and then just before I started going to school there, I met Deb, and so that was in '97. We met in the Four Corners Mine. Then in the next year, in 1998, I drove from Las Cruces to Portland. She was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and I stopped in Sedona. Again, this is a true story. I'm going from Las Cruces to Portland, and I get to Sedona. I was just going to spend a few hours there, right, and keep driving on. And so I leave Sedona after being there for 2 or 3 hours. I get about outside of Flagstaff, and I am falling asleep at the wheel. I'm not talking about just kind of I'm someone back then that would easily drive 25, 30 hours nonstop, like it's a walk in the park. I used to do it all the time. I'm just kind of figuring out what the hell is going on, but I just decided to get a hotel room, right? I get a hotel room. The next thing I know, it's like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. They're pounding at my door to see if I like killed myself or something like that, or something happened to me. I went out for 20 hours. I mean, I'm talking completely just out for 20 hours. Wasn't drinking, wasn't doing drugs, just like they did like a reset on my body. So I'm like, God. So I jump in the car, start driving, and I'm just frustrated. This is taking too long. I don't have time for this, yada, yada, yada. And I'm in California and I go, at the time I had a Isuzu Pup. It only took about $25 to fill up the gas. I go, if you really want me to meet her and talk to her again, and I need a sign right now. And so I go to, I mean, my gas light is on. I'm pushing the envelope. I get to a gas station. I go to put gas in it. At $2, it clicks off as it was full. I'm thinking this is an error, because it usually took $25 to fill it up back then, whatever, sometimes 30, maybe not that much because gas was cheap back then. And so I go to, I think it's an error, right? I go to put more gas in it. Gas is shooting out of the tank. The gauge is on full. I'm like, good God. So that was my sign to continue on the drive. Of course, I drove through Mount Shasta, and we met up again. Now, unfortunately, I want to say sometime between June and August of 1999 was the last I've ever heard. I've never heard from her again. She always said that she would end up homeless in Portland and die on the streets. But so I don't know if she's still alive or not. I don't. But that's the last I ever heard of her was in the summer of 1999. But yeah, she was a real person. Yeah.
Wow.
But she had a lot of information. I mean, she had a lot of amazing information. Yeah, kind of like David does. We all do.
Awesome.
Well, it's really fascinating that you have these synchronicities that and confirmations and signs, and it's very much to keep you in alignment. But you're probably somebody who just makes a lot of decisions, and they're like, no, we're gonna have to go down, and we're gonna have to really, really tell them for sure, no, that you absolutely have to do this. Like you're like, no, not gonna do it, and all of a sudden a phone call comes the next day. Hey, I really think you should be coming here in Mexico. Call like, how is this possible? How is this possible? But
Yeah.
it's fascinating where you get to see the divine synchronicities and orchestration really at work there, like and everybody as these divine messengers, including Deb, and but Deb is special because she's similar to like you. She's
Right,
just
right.
like almost like another version, very close in your oversoul soul group of like the your your closest souls that you're connected. So it's too bad you didn't get to spend so much time with her, but I'm sure the time that you did spend, you got a lot of information and all your questions answered.
Yeah, and I mean, she really validated my near-death experience because I was like, yeah, it happened, but did it happen? Oh yeah, it happened, but you just kind of put it on the back burner because you don't, it's just so or it's unusual. But there's many years ago, they did a program on either on Discovery or History Channel about they interviewed 10 men who had near-death experiences. They interviewed 10 women that had near-death experiences, and each and every one of the 10 men that they interviewed all waited 10 years before they talked about their NDE, where women, of course, talked about it immediately. I find that I think that's pretty fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, it's
yeah,
really interesting with yours too, is the sacred geometry and the toning that came through and how you soul bonded. Like soul bonding is a higher knowledge than most people in the community even aware that two souls can bond and come and exist as one in a life, and it's very it happens often. People don't even realize that it's like this, the power of the unity and the oneness, that's an even possibility, but it is. And you bonded with a really high dimensional being and came back. Like you're talking a super advanced being that
And there's lots of us on the planet right now.
yes. And so like a lot of people call, and this is what I want to like talk about a little bit because nobody talks about this because it's never discussed. Everybody talks about walk-ins, but walk-ins does not necessarily mean that one soul checks out. Sometimes it can be like in your experience where the two souls come together
Right, right.
and
Yeah,
coexist in this oneness. So you can't tell that you're two souls, but you're yet you have this super awareness. And what's beautiful about that is the soul that is at this really high mastery level, who's bonded with the soul, let's say at level B or C or whatever it is, can shoot to
right.
level F and I in vibrations just from benefiting from that bond. So there's a lot of souls that be like, sign me up for that soul bonding because that's going to raise my soul levels up and my gifts, and it's just going to shoot me up and into the super high soul trajectory for all future lifetimes and everything. And it gives you so much more. You
Yeah,
benefit. It's such a beautiful thing when you think of it.
I always joke that I evolved 5 lifetimes with a fifth of vodka. Please do not try this at home, as you may not get the same results as I did.
That is funny.
Yeah. So, and,
Yeah, amazing.
and I'm trying to think. I mean, there's so many things that, like, like with sound. Like, so what happens with me is like when I go into my toning, I feel like me or whatever part of me leaves, and these tones come through me. And people have called me a human singing bowl uh, for years because that's what I do. I literally channel 396 hertz, which is A sharp. And so I guess I want to talk a little bit about sound because sound and healing through sound is so important. So I was talking a little bit about sound and sound healing. What comes through me is a pure tone at 396 hertz, A sharp. And so the Hopi elders, the Anastasi, would sing to their crops to produce kernels of corn the size of most men's thumbs. It is said that in Hopi traditions, it said that grandmother Spider Woman sung the web of existence, the web of existence into reality. And the Judeo-Christian Bible, it says in the beginning was the word, in the beginning was the sound. The word person is Greek persona or per sound. The word universe is one song. And we know that, and this is what all traditions talk about, is that all creation, begins in sound. And I'm not trying to be politically correct here, but when people orgasm, they usually make something about sound. There's some type of a sound release. And if you look at Buddha, Krishna, Yogananda, Sai Baba, Mir Baba, Yeshua or Yeshuva or Yahuwah, all the masters' names have the sound in it. And when they found, like with cymatics, Hans Jen's work, that when you run a sound through like a magnetic sand filing, everything produces a very specific geometric pattern. Well, when you run the sound through an oscillator or the cymatics, it produces the Sir Yantra, which is the Hindu symbol of God, which is the 27 interlaced triangles. And it doesn't kind of look like it. Well, maybe it looks like it. No, it makes it, and it makes it, each and every time. So the sound, the sound is the sound of creation itself. And but if you really want to understand why sound is so important to us in humanity, we have to look at Dan Carlson. Dan Carlson is a farmer in Wisconsin, and back in the 50s or 60s, he discovered Rife technology. Rife technology's idea is that you run a sound wave or a frequency through a tumor, and it breaks it up. His wife had some type of systematic, I think it was breast cancer, and they didn't want to, didn't want to zap her or nuke her, so they they round sound waves to the tumor. Now, this makes sense because medical doctors use gallstones and kidney stones to break up, or they use sound waves to break up gallstones and kidney stones. Or if you've ever listened to an alto, soprano, or soprano, they have the ability to break glass because a tumor is a dense frequency. You run a right frequency, you run the right note through it, it breaks up the tumor. Now, Greg Braden has shown this on a sonogram, a live sonogram, where 3 Chinese healers using Qigong and sound, they dissolve a golf ball sized tumor in about 3 minutes. Edgar Casey, the famous psychic, said that sound would be the healing modality of the future. So Dan Carlson became fascinated with frequencies and sounds. Well, he found, David and Francesca, that when he ran a 4,000 to 5,000 hertz frequency through the crops, it would generate a 400% greater yield across the board. I didn't say 40%, but I said a 400% greater yield in crops throughout the board. This goes along with what the Hopi taught about, that singing to the crops produced kernels of corn the size of most men's thumbs. And the Celestine Prophecy, which came out in 1996 by James Redfield, he talks about singing to your plants to make them grow. The same
Wow.
You know
concept.
what's crazy? You want to know something that like is absolutely just like bow as soon as you said that? So I'm doing this like one-to-one session with this lady, and we go into, I think it's like a blue avian past life on the super high frequency that is just in complete love consciousness, just in love consciousness planet. Everything is in love with everything. And her house was emitting this crazy love frequency. It was insane. And she's talking about how 2 things, but one of the things is that she does talk to her plants and consciously connects, and she was asking what her plants would make them happier, what would bring them more joy. And the plant said, well, when it rains and it's cloudy, we're not getting that beam that really lifting us up. We would sure love to hear some music. And so she started playing music anytime it was cloudy, and it would just lift up the whole plant's spirits, and they're all through. And by having that connection, it just shoots up the love frequency. And it was like in the reality, the consciousness, it was amazing. But the love frequency that was coming from her house, it was like how you say you can't, that you had that angelic experience, you can't, that the heavens, you can't explain that love because it's just so intense. It was like that, like unbelievable. But instead of like at night, instead of her praying, she would think of everybody and think of how happy she is and excited that she is for all of their journeys, all of their accomplishments, and praising them and sending them love and visualizing this great happiness and all. So she would go through all these people until there was nobody to go through, and it was just this way of blessing in a different way, of being in a different consciousness. So you're definitely like talking my language when you're talking about, and we can finally now with this information get out of genetically modified um, crops and things that are hurting us. If we can dive into the frequency and the sound healing, which is your specialty, and you have like 30 plus years in sound healing and let's see here. You
He's amazing.
hypnotist, past life regression. Um, you have when somebody like, so if you haven't booked I'm going to book a session with Mark. I don't know which one yet because he's got all these different modalities here. I mean, the Qigong, probably not the hypnotist because I've seen so many of my past lives I don't even care. Just, but maybe the sound healing I would love. But
Yeah, you
is
would
that
love
is
it.
is that only in person or is there a way to?
Yeah, I just, I've tried to do it via Zoom, and I have like a $200 Sennheiser microphone. I have the mixer, and for me, the quality just isn't there. And what happens is that my tones just cut out, and I've tried different things. I've had Will and Allison try to help me with it, and they've experienced the same thing. And so unless I find a different computer or something set up, I really like to do it in person. I just want to
Yeah,
kind of backtrack to Dan Carlson a little bit.
yeah.
So Dan became fascinated with everything in nature, kind of like with Hans Jen's work in cymatics. Well, he discovered that when birds sing and chirp in the morning, they sing at that 4,000 to 5,000 hertz. So they're literally singing life into the planet every morning. When crickets chirp at night, they're literally chirping at around 2,000 cycles per second. They're literally closing everything down at night. So everything is based on frequency, resonance, uh, and sound, even in nature. So I mean, it's pretty amazing. So that, that sound can really help regenerate the body, and get things to grow and have them come back to life. It's really,
Aw,
yeah, it's remarkable.
love
Yeah.
it. Love it about the crickets, like shutting everything down. That's so cute. And the birds, like, that's adorable. They just sing us alive.
They sing us alive, right? Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. But our voice, the human voice, is the most powerful gift that we have, you know.
Thank you. That's why I talk so much. I'm just giving gifts left and right to everybody.
And in
No,
case you didn't notice, you're the only one out of the three of us that has the "ah" at the end of the
Oh,
name.
I realized that. I was thinking Francesca.
I know. I was gonna say it's not Marka or Davida. It's just Francesca. You're the master of the call.
yeah, right, right, yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And so, if you ever listen to, like, Pavarotti or whatever, you really get, I mean, you get so uplifted. I remember me when I was in Ireland in 2005, there was an alto soprano and soprano outside in the streets of Dublin, and their voices were so angelic. I mean, and there's about 30 or 40 people standing around them. I think it literally brought all of us to our knees. And I've been, and one of the things, just to go back to my NDE for a second, one of the first things that you hear when you cross over, is the Elohim, the angels that sing to God, and you hear that, and so that, it's a really profound experience to hear those angelic voices, to hear those angelic beings,
So
sing.
beautiful.
It's really
You
remarkable.
sound like an Elohim when you do your toning. It's really insane. Like it's the most wildest thing I've ever heard in my life because
Yeah,
it is definitely not human. It's
yeah,
it's definitely like a
yeah.
superhuman.
No, no, no. So I want to address this because people ask me this all the time. Because anyone that's had a near-death experience, they talk about all the love, how much you're loved, how much there's peace, how much there's joy. Well, there's all this love from God and the angels. Why does life on planet Earth suck? Why is it so hard? Or why is there so much pain and suffering on the planet? And that's a great question. And the reason is because you wanted someone to forgive. You wanted to demonstrate your power of love. You wanted to show, your soul said, this time I'm going to show love. Now, Psalm 139:16 says, every day, every deed, every action was recorded in your book, referring to the Akashic records before a single one had passed. Your life is the way that it is because you planned it this way beforehand. Now, if you go into look into Michael Newton's work, Journey of the Souls, he gets into this idea that even our conversations like you and I are having right now are pre-planned, but
I believe
we choose our parents, our circumstances, where we live, all those things. We tend to incarnate with about 30 people. Those are called our soul family, which tend to be our parents, our siblings, our aunts, uncles. I know in my own experience, I'm from Iowa, and it doesn't matter if I haven't been in Iowa in 4 or 5 years. Although I've been to Iowa quite a bit lately, and I'm probably going to have to go again next month because of family issues. But every time I go back to Iowa, there's always two or three people that I run into at the same time. Same people I run into all the time. And those are people that are part of your soul family, and they're there to help you remember, who you really are. But it's impossible for you not to meet who you're supposed to meet.
All right, so here's our rapid fire questions. If you could be physically abducted by one galactic group, who would it be and why?
Syrians, because that's where I am from.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Okay. Do you ever wonder if the soul took a wrong turn in the Milky Way and ended up on Earth?
No, because there's no, because there's basically a 1 in 400 trillion chance of you incarnated as a human right now.
Yeah, I know. We plan everything out, like you said too. So that was just a joke. Are star seeds here to master duality or to transcend it?
Transcend it.
Yeah, I believe that too. I think we're here to master it and transcend. Like, I think we have mastered it and now we're transcending, and that's why we're embodying the heaven on earth. Okay, how do star seeds communicate with their star families or guides?
Usually with telepathy, usually often we are more connected in the dream state than in the waking state, but through our dreams and telepathy.
Like interdimensionally,
Interdimensionally,
telepathically,
yeah,
yeah, to
telepathy,
each
yeah.
other. Yeah, that's how I do it. Um, what is the significance of synchronicities, repeating numbers, symbols?
So like when you see 1111, 1, 2, 3, 4, 54, 54, all those things are designed to do one thing, that is to raise your vibration, to get you more excited, to get you more in alignment with the things that you want. And they're just, reminders that of who you are.
Okay, that's awesome. Do star seeds risk spiritual bypassing by identifying too strongly with their cosmic origins?
Yes, and the reason is because it's so important for you to embrace your humanity, to acknowledge your divinity, but you also really have to embrace your humanity, you know, um, carry water and chop wood.
Mm-hmm.
You have to,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, you have to live your life, and you have to realize that you're playing a role. This is a role that you agreed to play. But we tend to dismiss sometimes being human, but it's so important that we don't do that. Because when you get into higher dimensional realities um, and galactic stuff, sometimes you're trying to build your house from the top down, and you have to have a foundation.
Definitely. And if you had one like final message for humanity to help raise the vibration on the planet, what would your best advice be?
Know thyself, and to thy own self be true.
Love it. Is that Shakespeare?
Uh,
I
I don't think that was. I
have to
don't,
look it up now.
yeah, know thyself, and to thy own self be true.
So true. If you don't know yourself, you don't know anything. You don't know everybody else, and you don't know that you are God.
And along with that, to remember that you are powerful. You you are you are powerful. You are a source energy. You are meant to be a creator. And again, it's always about know thyself, and to thy own self be true.
Mark, can you tell us about what you're offering for people and where they can find you and what kind of experiences they might have in sessions with you?
My primary focus though is hypnosis, past life regression. I have 30 some years of experience with past life regression. Gets right to the core of traumas. It helps people release things that are holding them back so they can be more of who they really are. And the other thing is I do qigong breath work, and I was downloaded a really powerful breathing technique in November of 2020. My website is mark-patterson.com. That's mark-patterson.com. If you don't put the dash in, you're going to get a famous jeweler in New York City. And I think I'm on Instagram at Sedona Mark Patterson. So we've really transformed lives. Last couple of years, had countless sessions of really empowering people.
Well, we are so grateful for having you on Everything Golden.
Again, I just want to tell people that you are it. You are the answer. Vote for yourself,
Yes.
elect yourself, vote for you, vote for yourself, elect yourself. You're the answer. Everything that you need, you already have everything that you need. You're not lacking anything. You're whole, complete. You are enough. Period.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. This
Right.
was incredible. I loved every second of it.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right,
Thank
we'll say
you.
goodbye to the audience.
Everything golden.
Finding your greatest love.
your highest adventures, the joy that brings you into the paradise life that you've always wanted to be living. It all starts with you and going deep inside. Featuring Francesca Rose and David Starr, where miracles come true every episode.